Kofi adjusted his dark sunglasses as his black SUV stopped in front of the massive glass building. 15 years abroad, 15 years of suffering, hustling, and sending money home. And today was the grand opening of Kofi Group of Companies in Lagos. People gathered outside the building taking pictures and cheering. "Boss, welcome home," his assistant said excitedly. Kofi smiled faintly. "Thank you. Today begins a new chapter." As he stepped out of the car, reporters rushed toward him. "Mr. Kofi, how does it feel returning from America after 15 years? What inspired this investment in Nigeria?" Before Kofi could answer, a weak voice interrupted. "Please, help me, even if it's just small money." Kofi froze. Near the gate sat an old woman in torn clothes, holding a rusty bowl in shaking hands. His heartbeat stopped. The bowl fell from the woman's hand the moment their eyes met. "Kofi?" The world suddenly became silent. Kofi removed his sunglasses slowly. "Mama?" People gasped. The security guards looked at each other in confusion. One whispered, "Wait, is this woman his mother?" The old woman burst into tears. "My son! My own son!" Kofi staggered backward. No, this can't be true." His voice trembled violently. "I sent money home every month, every single month." The woman cried harder. "Your uncle collected everything. He told us you abandoned us." Kofi's knees weakened. "What? He chased me out after your father died? I started begging to survive." The reporters lowered their cameras in shock. One woman in the crowd covered her mouth. "Oh my God!" Kofi looked at the gigantic building behind him, the building he sacrificed his entire youth to build. Then he looked at his mother's bare feet. Tears rolled down his face instantly. "Mama, all these years?" The old woman stretched her shaking hands toward him. "I prayed every day to see you again before I die." Kofi ran forward and hugged her tightly. The crowd became emotional. Even the security guards wiped their eyes. Kofi held his mother like a little child, afraid to lose her again. Then he looked up angrily. "Call my uncle." His voice turned cold. "Today, everybody will explain where my money went." Before we continue this emotional story, take a moment to support the channel. If this story is already touching your heart, please like and comment on this video. And don't forget to subscribe to African-Folk-Tales-By-Nikky for more powerful and unforgettable African stories. Your support helps us bring more emotional tales like this to life. The crowd outside the massive glass building remained silent as Kofi held his crying mother tightly in his arms. Nobody expected the rich young billionaire who had just returned from abroad to kneel on the dirty roadside beside a beggar. But what shocked them most was hearing the old woman call him her son. Kofi's expensive white suit became stained with dust as he hugged her tightly. "Mama, who did this to you?" he whispered painfully. His mother could barely speak through her tears. "Kofi, my son, I thought I would die without seeing you again." The reporters lowered their microphones slowly. Even the cameramen forgot they were recording. A woman in the crowd wiped her eyes. "This world is wicked," she muttered softly. Kofi stood up slowly and helped his mother to her feet. She looked weak, too weak. Her hands trembled badly. The same woman who once sold vegetables under the hot sun just to feed him. The same mother who walked barefoot for miles to pay his school fees. Now she looked like someone the world had forgotten. Kofi removed his expensive wristwatch immediately and handed it to his assistant. "Take this," "Sir?" the assistant asked in confusion. "Sell it now. Get food, water, and clothes for my mother immediately." "But sir, this watch costs—" "I said now." The assistant ran quickly. Kofi turned toward the security guard standing near the gate. Why was she sitting outside here begging? One guard swallowed nervously. "Sir, we didn't know she was your mother." Kofi's eyes became cold. "So, if she wasn't my mother, that means she deserved to suffer?" The guards lowered their heads instantly. His mother touched his arm gently. "Leave them, my son. They don't know." Kofi looked at her torn slippers again. Rage burned inside him. 15 years. 15 whole years abroad. He remembered the cold nights in London where he worked double shift washing dishes, the sleepless mornings driving taxis, the humiliation, the suffering. Everything he endured was for his family. Every month without fail, he sent money home. Millions. Enough to build houses, enough to start businesses, enough to give his mother a comfortable life forever. So how did she end up begging on the streets? Her jaw tightened. Where is Uncle Mensah? The moment he mentioned the name, his mother's face changed immediately. Fear. Pure fear. "Kofi," she said weakly, "please, don't fight him." Kofi stared at her in disbelief. "Fight him? Mama, you are starving." Tears rolled down her cheeks again. "He told everyone you forgot us. After your father died, he took the house." "What?" "He said all the money you sent belonged to him because he was the family head." The crowd gasped loudly. One reporter whispered, "This is unbelievable." Kofi clenched his fists. No, this can't be happening." His mother looked away in shame. "I tried to contact you, but he changed phone numbers. He told people not to mention my situation to you." Kofi's breathing became heavy. The memories flooded back instantly. Each time he called home, his uncle always answered, "Kofi, your mother is fine. Kofi, we used the money to repair the village house. Kofi, your mother traveled. Kofi, everything is under control." Lies. All lies. Meanwhile, his mother was suffering, hungry, homeless, begging, right in front of the company he built for his family. Kofi suddenly turned toward his assistant, who had returned with food and clothes. "Prepare the conference room upstairs." "Sir?" "Now." Within minutes, Kofi personally helped his mother into the building. Workers stood frozen as the old woman entered. Some cleaners stopped mopping the floor. The receptionist covered her mouth in shock. Nobody understood what was happening. The billionaire owner walked slowly beside a homeless old woman like she was the most important person in the world, because to him, she was. Inside the elevator, his mother stared at the shining walls nervously. "Kofi, I don't belong in places like this." Kofi looked at her with pain in his eyes. "Mama, everything here belongs to you." The elevator door opened. They entered the luxurious conference room. Kofi pulled a chair gently for her. His mother sat carefully, like she was afraid to stain anything. That alone broke his heart. A woman who once owned her own house now behaved like a stranger everywhere she went. Kofi knelt before her. "When was the last time you ate?" The old woman smiled weakly. "Yesterday morning, a woman gave me bread." Kofi closed his eyes. He couldn't breathe properly anymore. 15 years abroad, and his mother survived on charity. Suddenly, the door opened. A loud voice entered confidently. "Kofi, my son." Kofi looked up sharply. Uncle Mensah walked inside wearing expensive traditional clothes with gold jewelry around his neck. Behind him were two smiling relatives. But the moment Uncle Mensah saw Kofi's mother sitting there, his smile disappeared instantly. "Kofi," he stammered nervously. The room became silent, dead silent. Kofi stood up slowly. "You lied to me." Uncle Mensah forced a laugh. No, Kofi, listen. You told me my mother was living comfortably. She was. You told me the family house was under renovation. It was under renovation before. You told me all my money was helping the family. Uncle Mensah wiped sweat from his forehead. "Kofi, you know family problems are complicated." Kofi stepped closer slowly. "Complicated." His voice became dangerously calm. "My mother was begging outside my office." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Uncle Mensah glanced toward the security guards outside the glass wall. "Kofi, this is not the right place to discuss family matters." Kofi laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you care about dignity?" His mother stood weakly. "Kofi, please." But Kofi was too angry. "For 15 years, I trusted you." Uncle Mensah raised his voice suddenly. "And who sent you abroad? Who sold land for your visa process?" Kofi froze slightly. "Yes," Uncle Mensah continued boldly, seeing an opportunity. "Without me, you would still be suffering in this village." Kofi's eyes narrowed. "You sold one piece of land, and I sacrificed for you. So, does that give you the right to steal from my mother?" Uncle Mensah became defensive immediately. "I used the money for family responsibilities." "Which responsibilities?" "Burials, ceremonies, community contributions." Kofi pointed toward his mother. "And she became homeless?" The room exploded into silence again. His mother suddenly began crying softly. "Kofi, enough." But Kofi's pain had already turned into something else, something dangerous. He looked directly into his uncle's eyes. "How much did I send you in 15 years? Uncle Mensah hesitated. I don't remember." Kofi turned toward his assistant. "Bring every transfer record." "Yes, sir." Uncle Mensah panicked immediately. "Kofi, why are you embarrassing me like this?" Kofi smiled coldly. "Embarrassing you?" He pointed toward his mother's torn clothes. "This is embarrassment." The old woman broke down completely. Employees outside the conference room began whispering among themselves. "This is wickedness. How can someone do this to his own brother's wife? 15 years. Kofi turned back toward his uncle. "You know what hurts me the most?" Uncle Mensah remained silent. "For my father's burial, I was working abroad to support this family." Tears gathered in Kofi's eyes. "I suffered alone in another country while trusting you." His voice cracked painfully. "And all this time, my mother was suffering." Uncle Mensah suddenly fell to his knees. "Kofi, please, don't destroy me publicly." But Kofi's face remained faceless. For the first time, Uncle Mensah realized the quiet young boy he once controlled had become a powerful man, and power changes everything. Kofi leaned closer slowly. "You haven't seen destruction yet." At that exact moment, the assistant rushed back into the room, holding several documents. "Sir," Kofi collected the papers carefully. Then his eyes widened. His breathing stopped. "What is this?" The assistant looked nervous. "Sir, according to the records, someone has been withdrawing money from your overseas account for years." Kofi looked confused. "That's impossible." The assistant swallowed hard. "The withdrawals were authorized using your personal information." Kofi frowned deeply. Only one person had access to those details. Slowly, Very slowly, he turned toward Uncle Mensah. The old man's face lost all color immediately. And that was the moment Kofi realized the betrayal was far bigger than he imagined. The conference room became unbearably quiet. Kofi stared at the documents in his trembling hands while his uncle avoided eye contact completely. His assistant pointed nervously at the papers. "Sir, these withdrawals started 11 years ago." Kofi flipped through the documents slowly. Each page felt heavier than the last. Large withdrawals, different accounts, millions disappearing gradually over the years. His voice became dangerously calm. "How is this possible?" The assistant swallowed hard. "Someone used copies of your passport, signature, and bank details." Kofi looked up sharply. "My signature?" "Yes, sir." Kofi's heart pounded heavily inside his chest. Only family members had access to those documents years ago, back when he first traveled abroad, back when he trusted everyone. Slowly, he turned toward Uncle Mensah again. The old man was sweating badly now. "Kofi, listen to me. You stole from me." "No, it's not what you think. You stole from your own family." His mother covered her mouth in shock. "Mensah, you did this?" Uncle Mensah quickly stood up. "I can explain." Kofi slammed the document on the table. "Then explain." The entire room jumped. Outside the glass walls, workers had completely stopped pretending to work. Everybody was listening now. Uncle Mensah wiped his face with a handkerchief. "Kofi, when I first traveled abroad, things were difficult here. So you decided to rob me?" "No, I only borrowed small amounts." "Small?" Kofi held up the document angrily. "This is over 200 million naira. Gasps filled the room immediately. Even the assistant looked shocked again, hearing the total amount aloud. Kofi's mother staggered backward weakly. 200 million? Uncle Mensah raised both hands defensively. "I invested some of it." "In what?" "Business." "Where is the business?" Uncle Mensah opened his mouth, but no words came out. That silence said everything. Kofi laughed bitterly, a painful laugh, the kind that comes when betrayal cuts too deep. "You destroyed my mother's life because of greed." "No, Kofi, please. You made her beg on the streets." His mother suddenly cried louder. "Kofi, stop shouting." But Kofi was no longer calm. 15 years of sacrifice burned inside him like fire. He remembered sleeping in tiny apartments abroad with 4 other immigrants, skipping meals, working during snowstorms, being insulted because of his accent. Every humiliation suddenly replayed in his mind. And meanwhile, his own uncle was living like a king with stolen money. Kofi turned toward the reporter standing near the door. "Everybody should leave." Nobody moved immediately. "I said, leave." The room emptied quickly. Soon, only Kofi, his mother, Uncle Mensah, and the assistant remained. Kofi looked at his assistant. "Lock the door." Click. The sound echoed heavily. Uncle Mensah became visibly afraid. "Kofi, what are you doing?" Kofi walked slowly toward the giant window overlooking Lagos City. Cars moved below. People walked freely, completely unaware that his entire life had just shattered upstairs. Without turning back, he spoke quietly. "When I was in London," nobody interrupted him. "I used to stand outside restaurants in winter, waiting for customers to finish eating so I could wash plates till morning." His mother began crying softly again. "I worked 3 jobs sometimes." He turned slowly. "My hands used to bleed from cold." Uncle Mensah lowered his head. "But every month I smiled because I believed my family was okay." Kofi's eyes became wet. "I thought my mother was sleeping peacefully." His voice cracked. "I thought she was proud of me." His mother suddenly fell to her knees. "My son." Kofi rushed forward immediately. "Mama, no!" But she held his legs tightly while crying uncontrollably. "Forgive me." Kofi looked confused. "Mama, for what?" "I should have found a way to reach you." He knelt beside her instantly. "No, none of this is your fault." But she kept crying. "I failed you as a mother." Kofi hugged her tightly again. "You are the only reason I survived abroad." The emotional moment broke even the assistant's composure. He quietly wiped his eyes. Uncle Mensah suddenly spoke again. "Kofi, I know I made mistakes." Kofi slowly stood up. "Mistakes? Yes. You call this a mistake? I was under pressure. Pressure to do what? Steal?" Uncle Mensah's voice became desperate. "The family expected too much from me. So you punished my mother? She was stubborn." Kofi froze instantly. "What did you say?" Uncle Mensah realized too late that he had spoken carelessly. She kept asking questions about the money." The room became deadly quiet again. Kofi walked toward him slowly. "So because she asked questions, you threw her out?" "No, that's not exactly. You made my mother homeless." Uncle Mensah panicked. "Kofi, please." Then suddenly, the conference room door burst open violently. Everyone turned sharply. A young woman rushed inside crying heavily. "Dad!" She ran straight toward Uncle Mensah. Kofi barely recognized her. The last time he saw her, she was still a teenager. Now she looked terrified. She turned toward Kofi immediately. "Kofi, please, don't call the police." Kofi stared coldly. "You knew?" Tears rolled down her face. "I found out recently." "Recently? My father has debts." Uncle Mensah shouted immediately. "Akosua, stop talking." But she ignored him. "He borrowed money from dangerous people." Kofi narrowed his eyes. "What people?" Akosua hesitated fearfully. Then she whispered, "Local loan sharks." Uncle Mensah looked completely defeated now. Kofi's assistant spoke quietly. "Sir, this could explain the missing properties too." Kofi turned sharply. "What properties?" The assistant looked uncomfortable. "The village lands your father owned." Kofi's mother gasped loudly. "No." The assistant nodded sadly. "They were sold." Kofi looked like someone punched him in the chest. "What?" "All of them, sir." His mother nearly collapsed. "That land belonged to your father's family." Kofi grabbed the table tightly. His father's lands, gone. Everything gone. 15 years of trust destroyed. Uncle Mensah suddenly dropped to his knees completely. "Kofi, forgive me." But Kofi's eyes had changed now. This was no longer anger alone. This was heartbreak, the kind that changes a person forever. Akosua cried desperately. "Kofi, please, if those people don't get their money, they'll kill my father." Kofi laughed softly in disbelief. "So, after ruining my mother's life, now I should save him too?" Nobody answered. The silence became heavy. Then suddenly, Kofi's phone rang. He almost ignored it, but when he saw the caller ID, his expression changed slightly. It was the bank manager from London. Kofi answered slowly. "Hello?" The voice on the phone sounded urgent. "Mr. Kofi, we've discovered another issue regarding your account." Kofi frowned immediately. "What issue?" The manager hesitated, then said words that froze everybody in the room. "Sir, there is a loan under your name worth nearly £500,000. Kofi's eyes widened. "What?" "And if payment is not made within 7 days, international fraud charges may be filed." The phone nearly slipped from Kofi's hand. His mother looked terrified. Uncle Mensah closed his eyes in fear, but the worst part came next. The bank manager continued. "The person who signed the loan documents used a witness." Kofi's voice became weak. "Who?" Silence. Then, "A woman identified as your mother." The conference room exploded into confusion. Kofi stared at the phone in disbelief. His mother looked completely lost. "A loan?" she whispered weakly. "What loan?" The bank manager's voice continued from the speaker. The documents contain your mother's signature and identification. Kofi's breathing became heavy. That's impossible. His mother shook her head immediately. I cannot even travel outside Nigeria. How would I sign papers in London? Kofi closed his eyes slowly. Someone had used her identity. Someone had forged everything. And deep inside him, he already knew who was responsible. Very slowly, he turned toward Uncle Mensah. The old man looked terrified beyond words. Kofi, listen. You used my mother's name? No, I can explain. You forged her signature too? Akosua stepped backward in horror. Daddy, you said the loan was legal? Uncle Mensah shouted desperately. I had no choice. Kofi laughed painfully. No choice? His voice cracked with emotion. You stole my money. You sold my father's lands. You made my mother homeless. And now you use her identity for fraud? The old man burst into tears. I was trying to survive. Kofi pointed angrily. While my mother was begging outside? The room fell silent again. Outside the conference room, dark clouds slowly gathered in the sky. Rain began falling gently against the glass windows. Kofi's mother suddenly sat down weakly. She looked exhausted, completely broken. Kofi rushed toward her immediately. Mama? Her breathing had become uneven. The assistant quickly brought water, but her shaking hands could barely hold the cup. My son, she whispered faintly. Kofi knelt beside her. I'm here. She touched his face slowly. You came too late. Those words pierced Kofi's heart like a knife. Tears rolled down his cheeks instantly. No, Mama, please don't say that. She smiled weakly. For years, I waited every day at the roadside, hoping to see you. Kofi lowered his head in pain. I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. But Kofi felt destroyed inside, because deep down, he knew she was right. He came back too late to save her from suffering, too late to protect his father's legacy, too late to stop betrayal from destroying the family. Suddenly, loud banging echoed outside the office downstairs. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone looked up immediately. The assistant rushed toward the window. Sir, what is it? There are men outside asking for Uncle Mensah. Akosua gasped in fear. Oh no! Uncle Mensah's face lost all color. Kofi narrowed his eyes coldly. The loan sharks? Akosua nodded tearfully. They've been threatening him for months. The banging downstairs became louder. Workers began to panic outside. Some security guards hurried toward the entrance. One of them called upstairs nervously. Sir, some dangerous men are demanding payment. Kofi looked coldly at Uncle Mensah. So this is what your greed brought? Uncle Mensah fell to the floor completely. Kofi, please save me. Kofi stared silently. For a moment, he remembered every painful year abroad, every sacrifice, every lonely night. And now, the same man responsible for his mother's suffering was begging him for help. His mother suddenly spoke weakly. Kofi? He turned quickly. Yes, Mama. Don't let bloodshed happen because of this family. Kofi clenched his jaw painfully. Even after everything, she still wanted peace. That was the kind of woman she was. Good. Too good for the wicked people around her. The assistant rushed back toward Kofi. Sir, police are on their way, but those men are armed. Akosua began crying harder. They'll kill him. Kofi remained silent for several seconds. Then, finally, he reached into his pocket and brought out his phone. He called someone immediately. Transfer the debt. The assistant looked shocked. Sir, pay all of it. Uncle Mensah looked in disbelief. Kofi? But sir, the assistant whispered, after everything he did? Kofi looked at his mother quietly. Then he answered softly, I'm not doing it for him. His mother closed her eyes emotionally. Minutes later, security informed them the men had left after confirmation of payment. Relief filled the room. Akosua dropped to her knees crying, thank you. But Kofi didn't even look at Uncle Mensah, because forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. Uncle Mensah stood slowly with trembling legs. Kofi, I swear I will repay you. Kofi's voice became cold again. No. The old man froze. You will leave this family completely. Kofi, please. You lost that right years ago. Silence. You will return every property document remaining. Yes. And after today, never come near my mother again. Uncle Mensah broke down crying fully, but nobody pitied him anymore, not after the destruction he caused. Kofi turned toward Akosua. You can stay if you want to care for your father. She lowered her head tearfully. Thank you. Kofi gently helped his mother stand. We are going home, Mama. She looked confused. Home? Kofi smiled sadly. Yes. He pointed toward the giant building around them. This company? Then he looked directly into her eyes. It was always yours. His mother burst into tears again. Outside, the rain continued falling softly as Kofi slowly walked his mother through the hallway. Workers stood respectfully on both sides. Some bowed their heads, others wiped tears silently. News of what happened had already spread through the building. The billionaire owner, whose mother was secretly suffering, the uncle who stole everything, the painful reunion after 15 years. As Kofi reached the elevator, his mother suddenly stopped walking. Kofi? Yes, Mama. She smiled faintly through her tears. Your father would be proud of you. Kofi could no longer hold his emotions. He hugged her tightly again while crying openly for the first time in years. Not because of money, not because of betrayal, but because after 15 painful years abroad, the one person he feared losing most was finally back in his life. 3 months later, Kofi officially opened a new charity foundation in Lagos. Its name shocked everyone. The Mother's Hand Foundation, a shelter created for abandoned elderly women. Women like his mother. Women forgotten by their families. During the opening ceremony, reporters asked Kofi one final question. After everything your uncle did, why didn't you destroy him completely? Kofi looked at his mother sitting proudly in the front row. Then he answered quietly, because pain should end somewhere. The crowd became silent. His mother smiled proudly with tears in her eyes, and for the first time in many years, peace finally returned to their family. If you enjoyed this emotional story and it touched your heart, please don't forget to like and comment on this video. Your support means a lot to us. And make sure you subscribe to African-Folk-Tales-By-Nikky for more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable African stories. More amazing tales are coming your way.